Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Media Book Podcast, your weekly edition where we talk about movies, TV, music, and video games, not necessarily in that order. My name is Mike. His name is Matt. Except he's not here. He's visiting his dad, and so it's a solo show, and we're gonna run right through this thing super quickly. Starting with the music section. So the music section with the Billboard. Start the Billboard with the Hot 100, and the hottest song in the land, debuting at number one, is a delicious In and Out 4x4. It's just 4x4 by Travis Scott. Coming in at two, Die with a Smile by Lady Gaga and Bruno Mars. Three is APT by Rose and Bruno Mars. Coming in at four, Luther by Kendrick Lamar and SZA. And running at your top five, a bar song, Tipsy by Shabuzi. So yeah, Travis Scott comes in at number one. Uh, Bruno Mars stays put at two and three. Everything else moves up. Luther and Shabuzi. As for your albums chart, you have Billboard 200 at number one, and still number one, Debí tirar más fotos by Bad Bunny. At two, SOS by SZA. At three, GNX by Kendrick Lamar. Coming in at four, I've tried everything but therapy. Part two by Teddy Swims. And rounding out your top five. And returning to the top five. One Thing at a Time by Morgan Wallen. If you're wondering where the weekend album is coming, that's going to be next week. But if you like any of those albums, we have new releases, starting with Cowards by Squid, Universe Room by Guided by Voices, 1111 by Big Pig, Open Wide by Inhaler, and lastly, Enter Now Brightness by Nadia Reed. And so, with that, let's get into our music news. And there wasn't a whole lot of news going on because the Grammys just happened last weekend. That's right. Because we record at the end of the week, now we talk about the Grammy winners. So everyone from Beyonce's Cowboy Carter making history to Beyonce winning her first album of the year and becoming the first Black woman to ever take home the Golden Globe or Golden Gramophone in the Best Country Music Album, to Kendrick Lamar's Not Like Us, which swept all five categories it was nominated. It was, quite the night. As for the major awards, Record of the Year went to Not Like Us by Kendrick Lamar. Song of the Year also went to Not Like Us by Kendrick Lamar. As mentioned, Cowboy Carter by Beyonce won Album of the Year, and Best New Artist was Chapel Roan. So, taking a look at what we marked off last week, I'd say I beat Matt. Isn't that right, Matt? That's right. I did beat you, just like I said, called it, that I would win the Grammy votes. But yeah, it was a fun night, fun music-filled night. Very surprised that they let Charlie XCX pretty much do whatever she wanted at the Grammys, it looked like. Definitely not. I mean, glad she was like at the end of the night, so it's definitely not suitable for children. But yeah, everyone with the top album performed, so it's a fun night overall. Beyonce looking all surprised for winning country album, but us here at the Music Book Podcast know we already called that she was going to win the album of the year, and sure enough, called her name and won it. Even if you could say Jay-Z kind of sprinkled that into everyone's mind last year when he won the Dr. Dre Influence Award or Global Influencer Award, which this year went to Alicia Keys. So yeah, overall, fun night at the Grammys. fun wins with the Grammys, and now everyone's on to next year at the Grammys. Oh, and if you're wondering, yes, Taylor Swift did not win anything at the Grammys this year, but Casey Musgraves, other Media Boat favorite, did for Best Country Song for The Architect, which, if you haven't heard, highly go listen to it because that was also part of my one of my top five albums of the year, Better Well by Casey Musgraves. Uh, you can look up a list of the other Grammy winners everywhere, but yeah, Beyonce with her 99th nomination for Grammys finally won an Album of the Year award. Congratulations, Beyonce. Go on tour and we'll see you. I don't know when she's coming around our neck of the woods, but eventually, because ticket sales and all that. Well, I didn't listen to anything, so we get to go on to video games, where we start with new releases, or at least we would, except every new release that I found wasn't quite like the newest, like upcoming releases. Because the one I found was for last week, or at least something coming out this week. Um, yeah, I don't know what I don't know what else is coming out this week, but I bet it's good stuff. So let's get to video game news, where we start with Warner Brothers in the news yet again. But normally we have them in movie section and in TV section. But here we have them in the video game section because the Warner Brothers platform fighting game, MultiVersus, is getting shut down officially on May 30th, according to a statement by developer Player First Games. The game, which was released last year on May 28th of 2024, allowed players to use various characters and IPs from Warner Brothers to platform fight against each other, a la Smash Brothers Melee and Brawl and stuff. The other Ultimate, I think they're on right now. But yeah, it'll last just over a year before it gets shut down. For players, this means that the online features will remain accessible until the end of the game's Season 5, which is currently going on, and that will end on May 30th at 9 a.m. Pacific time. Any real money transactions for the game have ceased, but there's currently no words on any refunds for items that have already been purchased, including the $100 Founders Edition from last year. Players will still be able to play an offline version of the game, whether it be the solo mode or against AI, if they download the latest version of the game and log in before May 30th. According to CEO David Zaslav, quote, Q4 results were impacted by games for which we took another $100 million plus impairment due to the underperforming releases, primarily MultiVersus, this quarter, bringing total write-down year to date to over $300 million in our game businesses, the key factor in this year's studio profit decline. Close quote. And that right there is the whole reason it's getting shut down, is that Zaslav looked at the bottom line and said, it's not making enough money. It costs more to run the servers, and it does to help more to run servers, more to pay developers than it does to keep this game going. So just here he comes, David Zaslav with his axe and cutting off MultiVersus just barely a year post-launch. As I mentioned, there are people who paid $100 for the Founders Edition because this is technically the second release of MultiVersus. There was a beta released the previous year, 2023 at the end, for a couple of months before being taken offline and brought back in May of last year. And now, once again, it's being taken offline and being shuttered. Uh, I don't remember if there was any physical copies of this game, but This is just yet another kind of dagger in live service games of how people, yeah, you may have some people go out and spend money on this, but if there's no confidence that the game's going to be around for even a year later, players are less likely to spend money on it. You can take a look at mobile games like Pokemon Pocket Mobile and how they just keep releasing new content. And that's what was that? October. So we're what, 5 months out, almost 6 months into it. And people are spending money on it because they know that they have a lot more to offer, that they can that the game will be around for more than a year. They're not just gonna shutter it down. And here, just out of the blue, gone. And yet another game fallen, just like Concord of last year. Although at least MultiVersus made it a year instead of Concord not making it a month. But again, as we follow our story of the year from last year, how do video games make money? And that's a big question as we continue. And it's proving more and more correctly why we chose it as our story of the year. That if players and gamers can't trust that a live service game is going to be around, why spend more money into it than just the ticket of admission? Why spend on DLC if there's not going to be any future support for it? Why spend money on skins and cosmetics if it can all be taken away at a moment's notice? There's nothing worse. No, there's no worse feeling than spending money on something and you're not really buying anything, just the rights to own it, and you don't actually have any physical stake in it. So yeah, just another huge loss in the video game sphere. Uh, Matt, I'm sure you have more to talk about this, but clearly you're not here to talk about it. So I've looked forward to your thoughts next week. Uh, I've been streaming some stuff, including Infinity Nikki and the Madden 25 this upcoming weekend. I will probably try and do a Super Bowl speed run challenge in franchise mode where see if I can get to the Super Bowl and win it within an hour. Yeah, I'm gonna sim through a lot of the games, but I think I can do it. Uh, I have no idea what the actual time is, but I figure I might give it a shot. So look forward to that this upcoming weekend as we get towards the Super Bowl. And that's a great segue. Thank you, me, for right into the television section with the we start the television section with the sports corner. And as mentioned, the big game is this weekend with the Eagles taking on the Chiefs in Super Bowl licks 59 for you non-Roman numeral speakers over there. So, little preview of Super Bowl coming up here for 30 seconds of ad space because that's all we really care about. Uh, Advertisers and companies will have to pay $7 million per 30 seconds. I'm betting they could use that $7 million elsewhere. Employees, sorry, throat there. But maybe the commercials will be fun because that's all I care about coming into Sunday. Sure, you do have the storylines of the Kansas City Chiefs seeking a three-peat. Uh, but on the flip side, you have the Eagles winning. But if they do win, that means Saquon wins. And if Saquon wins, that means he gets his running back revenge not only on the Giants, but effectively and hopefully resets that running back market to where, yes, running backs are an important factor in the NFL and are definitely needed in this very pass heavy offenses that we see. But running backs still have a room and a place here. And hopefully this means that running backs can finally get their value at what they're worth and have these overly ballooned contracts to match the to match the receivers and the quarterbacks. But if you're not into any of those football stats, well, good news because recent 5-time Grammy winner Kendrick Lamar will be in attendance. Well, I mean, as will Taylor Swift. But Kendrick Lamar is actually going to be the one performing at the head as the Super Bowl halftime show with SZA. So look forward to that. I have money on him coming out and singing DNA as his first song. I am sure he's going to eventually sing Not Like Us. But, you know, it's technically not his first time performing at the halftime show. It's his first time headlining, not performing, because during the LA concert, he came up and had a little cameo appearance alongside about like 6 other people during that Super Bowl performance in LA. So yeah, he's no stranger to the halftime show, but he does get all the songs now, and I'm sure Drake will be watching intently. Other artists performing at the Super Bowl include John Baptiste, who will sing the national anthem, and Ladisi, who will sing Lift Every Voice and Sing. So that is your Super Bowl preview going into this week's game. But before we got there, we had the NFL honors just last night, where we now know who will be in the Hall of Fame. The Hall of Fame class for 2025 include Eric Allen, Jared Allen, Antonio Gates, and Sterling Sharp. 5 well-deserved players, but there were some notable names left off of this year's list. Snubs, including 2-time Super Bowl winner Ellie Manning, linebacker Luke Kuechly, receivers Torrey Holt Reggie Wayne, the defensive dominator Terrell Suggs, and the player with the most points scored in the history of the NFL did not get into the Hall of Fame. I am talking about the old man himself, Adam Vinatieri, who did not get in on his first try. Now, to be fair, he is a place kicker, which is a specialty, and in all of Canton, there's only 5 kickers who've ever been into the Hall of Fame. Although you could make a really strong case, as I have, that the man has scored the most points in the NFL. He scored the most field goals in the NFL. He has a lot of kicking records, and yet you look at that and say, nah, he's not Hall of Fame material. Like, come on, get out of here. The man deserves it. The man kicked his way into it. Give him a statue, give him a bust. Although you don't want a bust of his face, you want a bust of his leg because he's a kicker, and that's the thing that got him into the NFL, to the Hall of Fame. But there were other awards given out over the course of the night, including the Coach of the Year going to Kevin O'Connell of the Minnesota Vikings, who took his team 14-2, the third best record in the NFL, behind the Detroit Lions and the Kansas City Chiefs, with technically a backup quarterback. So yeah, well done, well deserved, Kevin O'Connell. Other awards, including Defensive Rookie of the Year, goes to Jared Verse on the Rams. Offensive Rookie of the Year goes to creative player himself, Jaden Daniels. Defensive Player of the Year, Pat Surtain II in Denver. Offensive Player of the Year to Saquon Barkley, a well-deserved Offensive Player of the Year. Comeback Player of the Year to Joe Burrow, which is expected because he was pretty much injured all of last year. But your MVP, your NFL MVP, is none other than Josh Allen. That's right. Your MVP will not be playing the Super Bowl this year because he lost. But Josh Allen, with an amazing year, is your MVP. Although really it should be Saquon. He had he hit 2,000 yards on a new team and just dominated everywhere. He should have won MVP, but you know. As for the biggest honor of the night, the Walter Payton Man of the Year, that honor goes to Jaguars Arik Armstead as he won this year's event, the defensive lineman on the Jaguars. So congratulations to all your new hardware. Congratulations on all your trophies. Congratulations to the Hall of Fame class. And congratulations to snacks as you will be eaten plentifully during the Super Bowl. But that's not the only thing that's happening in the sports world, because after the lights dim on the Super Bowl, 2 days later, on the 11th, spring training is here. We get right into baseball, and the Dodgers will be reporting to spring training that following Tuesday. So, spring training right around the corner. Also, right around the corner, the NHL Four Nations Face-Off that begins on the 12th, but we get enough time to talk about it. Well, we don't have time to talk about it because that starts on Wednesday, the 12th, and that'll go for a full week until the 20th. And as mentioned, will take place instead of the NHL All-Star Game. And of course, concurrently with the NHL is the NBA. And the trade deadline was last week, or not last week, was yesterday. And trades exploded this past week. That's where my mind went. Because we got new players on new teams, starting with the biggest trade and shocking everybody. Luka Doncic, the face and the leader of the Mavericks, who took them to the NBA Finals just last year, was traded by the team to the Los Angeles Lakers in a blockbuster move that also saw Mark Williams, center for I think it was the Pelicans, also going to the Lakers, where Caleb Martin and Anthony Davis were being sent to the Mavericks. Uh, Huge trade, huge news, made waves everywhere. But now Luka is playing on the same team as LeBron, and LeBron's been to the finals, and Luka's been to the finals. So, no surprise that Vegas odds immediately shot up the Lakers to having some of the best odds to win the NBA championship this year. Other trades around the NBA include Jimmy Butler to the Warriors and Chris Middleton from the Bucks to the Wizards in what has to be one of the worst signs you could see for Chris Middleton, because the Bucks are pretty good and the Wizards are terrible. Um, and lastly, in uh, sports, NASCAR. This past weekend, we had the Busch Light Clash at the Coliseum, but not in LA. Instead, it was at Bowman Gray Stadium, which is in Salem, North Carolina. Uh, your winner of the Clash of the Coliseum was Chase Elliott, followed by Blaney, and then Hamlin for the exhibition Clash of the Coliseum. Uh, Daytona will run next weekend. At the start of the new season, NASCAR season is just around the corner, with the first duels taking place next Thursday and Friday, with the Daytona 500 on the 16th. So we'll know by the time we record next week who will be sitting in pole position as we get to the start of NASCAR. All right, now all the sports are done. So we get to go into TV news. And you know who we love here at the Media Podcast? Saturday Night Live. Well, Last week, we talked about Saturday Night, the movie, which you can watch on Peacock right now. But if you can't get enough SNL, or if you want to prepare for the upcoming 50th celebration, then NBC and Peacock have you covered. Among the guests that will be featured on SNL 50, the anniversary special, which will be premiering the following Sunday, the 16th, are Adam Driver, Io Edebiri, Bad Booney, Dave Chappelle, John Mulaney, Kim Kardashian, Martin Short, Miley Cyrus, Paul McCartney, Paul Simon, Pedro Pascal, Peyton Manning, Quentin Brunson, Robert De Niro, Sabrina Carpenter, Scarlett Johansson, Steve Martin, Tom Hanks, and Woody Harrelson. And many more yet to be announced. So that will be in a couple Sundays. But in order to prepare for it, you can watch on Peacock some compilations, including a Saturday Night Live Thanksgiving and a Saturday Night Live Christmas. Both are 2-hour-long specials that highlight some of the show's most famous holiday sketches. Peacock also has a 4-part documentary on the show's history titled SNL 50, Beyond Saturday Night, and another documentary called Ladies and Gentlemen, 50 Years of SNL Music, which focuses on prominent musical guests. There will also be an SNL 50, the Homecoming Concert, that will take place next week on February 14th, Valentine's Day, at Radio City Music Hall, which will be live streamed on Peacock, hosted by a very giggling Jimmy Fallon. So get ready for all this SNL. Just cram it into 2 weeks. I bet if you start now, well, after this podcast, of course, you can probably watch every single episode of SNL because they are all available on Peacock. Yeah, or just dive right into a bunch of this best of compilations, these 50 years SNL 50 Homecoming. Try not to watch Saturday night if you can help it. But yeah, lots of SNL shenanigans and tomfoolery that you can get your hands on over on Peacock. Thoughts? Still watching The Pit, still watching Paradise, still watching Severance. I know that all three of those shows cannot make my top 5 by the end of the year, but damn, is it going to be hard to knock one of them out. Although, if I have to make a shot, it's probably Paradise at this point, but it's also might be Severance at this point. I don't know. Both those shows are kind of on the tipping edge of me of keeping me interested, but how good will it be by the very end? But the pit's just a wild ride every single episode. I'm absolutely in love with it. So, with nothing else, we can go over to cancellations and renewals. What am I no longer watching? Well, you're no longer watching The Cube, as it has been canceled after 2 seasons on TBS. Sorry, Dwayne Wade, no one wants your Cube anymore. Also canceled after 2 seasons on TBS, Wipeout. That is the reboot of Wipeout, which is hosted by John Cena, dun, 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 who recently lost the Royal Rumble this past weekend. Yeah, that also happened. So yeah, that's actually the reboot. The original ran from 2008 to 2014 on ABC. This was the follow-up, the re-release reboot. Yeah. Also canceled after 1 season, How to Die Alone by Hulu. And guess what? It does die alone with 1 season. But we do have some renewals, including Kith gets a 3rd season on Disney Channel. The Creep Tapes gets a 2nd season on Shudder. And English Teacher gets a 2nd season on FX. There's one notable death this week. Virginia Hallis McCaskey, 102 years old, known by many as the mother of football. Uh, Actually, the first daughter of football, because her dad, George Hollis, was the founder and owner of the Chicago Bears before passing that ownership on to his daughter, Virginia. So yeah, the Bears, long-winded history of the Bears, lost their leader, and now they've find a new owner. All right, let's go on into the last section here, movie section, where we start with the weekend box office. And at number one is no surprise, Dogman. But here we get to add one tally to me as I went over the 30 million, and so did Dogman with 36 million debut, easily making it the number one film this weekend. At two, we have Companion at 9.3 million with its debut. Coming in at three, Mufasa, The Lion King with 6.3 million. That's at 230 million. Coming in at four, One of Them Days with another 5.8 million, bringing its total to 34 million. And dropping from number one to number five is Flight Risk at 5.4 million, coming up with $20 million total. Just a little side note here, Sonic 3 is still up here. It's at number six with another 3.2 million, but that is also at 230 million. So our watch between Mufasa and Sonic are now tied at $230 million. Who will take the lead coming into next week? It's anyone's game. Because we have two, not one, but two new releases coming this weekend. You have Love Hurts, which is the action romantic comedy movie starring Kei Wan, and the horror Valentine's film, Heart Eyes. If I had to guess between these two, as much as I want to say Love Hurts is going to be the number one film, horror movie coming up to Valentine's Day, I think Heart Eyes gets the number one here over Love Hurts. And if I'm wrong, that's a free point for Matt. I'd love to be wrong, but horror movies do surprisingly well. So I'm going with Heart Eyes as the number one film here. We'll find out if I'm right or if I'm wrong next week. All right, so let's get over into movie news. And another franchise is looking to take its talent from the tabletop to the big screen. Hasbro Entertainment, as they want to do, is conjuring up a universe based on MTG. That's right, Magic the Gathering, the game. The toy company is teaming up with Legendary Entertainment to develop a shared Magic the Gathering universe that it says will span film and TV. First order of business is adapting the game as a movie. So noted that Legendary has turned a number of known brands into franchises, such as Godzilla vs. Kong and Dune, both of which span both film and TV, with Godzilla spin-off series Monarch over on Amazon, or not Amazon, Apple, and the Dune franchise, the Dune spin-off of Dune Prophecy over on Max. So the plan is to get Magic the Gathering into a film and then spin it off into probably Netflix because they already have a deal with the TV show for Magic the Gathering there. Whether it will keep the tabletop aesthetic of Magic the Gathering or if it'll delve into the actual like lore the hidden lore of Magic the Gathering that's like built within the cards, in conjunction with Wizards of the Coast, who are owned by Hasbro Entertainment, uh, will is yet to be seen. But I'm pretty sure Legendary also did Dungeons and Dragons a couple years ago, so maybe they saw what they had there, liked it enough, and pushed to make a expanding universe. Since this is breaking and in early development now, no script writer has been attached. It's just that they are looking at creating this. So don't expect Magic the Gathering to come to your theater anytime soon. Give it about 3 to 5 years until they actually find a proper writer for it. And with that, I believe we are done with this podcast. So, thank you for joining me on this wonderful journey. If you'd like to give if you want more Media Boat Podcast, you can find us at MediaBoatPodcast.com, where you can see write ups of our thoughts and past episodes. If you want to watch us, you can find us at Media Boat Podcast on YouTube. You can also search for Media Boat Podcast on Spotify, Google Play, Apple Podcast, Amazon, any place. Just search Media Boat Podcast, and I'm sure you'll find us. We're on social media. Just search Media Boat or Media Boat Podcast or Media Boat Cast. If you have any thoughts that you'd like to read on the air, if you want to give positive feedback or negative about me doing a solo shows hosting and how I just flubbed all that up, please email us at mediaboatpodcast@gmail.com. Just in the subject line, put flub with like 5 exclamation points, and I'll know you hit it. If you want to watch me play video games, you can find me. Just search MediaBoat on twitch.tv. If you want to leave reviews of us for us, you can find us. We have an IMDb page. We have a Discord. We have a Blue Sky. Come find us and join in the fun of Media Boat Podcast. And with that, that'll do it for this week's edition of the Media Boat Podcast. And I think I've pretty much said our name about 500 times in like 2 minutes just now. So you can find us right here with Matt returning for more news, more thoughts, who's going to win the Super Bowl, and who's going to win box office next week. All right, bye.